The rain hammered the windows of my cramped Brooklyn apartment like it was trying to drown out the scream building in my chest. I stared at the text from Jake, my best friend since freshman year at NYU, flashing on my phone. Dude, I swear it's nothing personal. Just pay up or shut up about it. My hands shook as I typed back, the words blurring through hot tears. How could the guy I'd loved in secret for years, the one I just bailed out with my entire savings, turn on me like this? In that moment, as thunder cracked outside, I realized our bond wasn't unbreakable. It was a lie I'd built brick by fragile brick. I never thought betrayal would taste like cheap takeout and stale coffee. But there I was, slumped over the Formica table in that dingy diner on Flatbush Avenue, watching Jake shovel fries into his mouth like the world wasn't crumbling around us. It was a Thursday night in late summer, the kind where the humidity clings to your skin like regret, and the air conditioner hummed a lazy dirge in the background. We'd been coming to this place since we were broke college kids, dreaming big about escaping our small-town shadows for the neon pulse of New York. Jake with his easy grin and tousled blonde hair, me with my quiet sketches and endless playlists. We were the odd couple that worked, or so I told myself. That night, though, his grin was strained, his blue eyes darting to the door every few seconds like he expected ghosts to barge in. "Alex," he said finally, pushing his plate away. "I need to talk to you about something big." My stomach twisted. Jake didn't do big, unless it involved a wild party invite or a spontaneous road trip. But this was different. His voice cracked on the edge of desperation, and when he leaned in, his hand brushed mine across the table, sending that familiar spark up my arm. I pulled back just a fraction, reminding myself for the 1,000th time that he was straight, unavailable, the straight best friend who'd never know how his touch unraveled me. "Spill it?" I said, forcing a casual tone, though my heart was already racing. He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck, that telltale sign he was about to drop a bomb. "My family's in trouble. Dad's business tanked again. Mom's talking about selling the house in Ohio to cover debts. And there's this medical bill from Grandma's last round of chemo." His voice trailed off, and he looked at me with those eyes, wide and pleading, like I was his last lifeline. I knew the stories. The absent father chasing get-rich schemes, the mother holding it all together with sheer will, the grandmother who'd raised him on stories of grit and second chances. Jake had always been the golden boy, but family pulled him back to earth every time. "How much?" I asked, already calculating in my head. Rent was due in 2 weeks. My freelance graphic design gigs were drying up in this brutal economy. But damn if I wouldn't move mountains for him. He swallowed hard. $5,000. I know it's insane. I wouldn't ask if... Hey! I cut him off, squeezing his forearm before I could stop myself. His skin was warm, freckled from summer runs in Prospect Park, and for a split second, I let myself imagine what it would be like if he squeezed back. "We're family, right? Brothers before. Everything." The words tasted bitter, but I smiled anyway. By the next morning, I drained my savings account. Every penny from that logo redesign for the indie band, the emergency fund I'd scrimped for during lean months. Transfer confirmed. $5,000 to Jake Harlan. He texted back immediately, "Alex, you're a lifesaver. I owe you forever. Beers on me. Hell, the whole damn bar." I laughed it off in my reply, but inside, it felt like a vow. If this was what it took to keep him close, to be the one he turned to when the world got heavy, I'd do it 100 times over. Little did I know, that wire transfer was the first crack in the foundation we'd built over 7 years of late-night confessions, shared heartbreaks, and unspoken what-ifs. Weeks blurred into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Jake threw himself into job hunting, barista shifts at that hipster spot in Williamsburg, auditions for off-Broadway bit parts that never panned out. He'd crash at my place more often, sprawled on the futon with his guitar, strumming covers of Springsteen that made my chest ache with their raw honesty. "To the Promised Land," he'd sing off-key, winking at me, and I'd pretend it was just nostalgia, not the ache of loving someone who'd never love you back the same way. One evening, as October leaves turned the streets into a fiery haze, we walked home from a comedy show in the village. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor. and Jake slung an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close against the chill. You know, man, that money is turning things around. Dad's got a lead on a loan, Mom's smiling again. You're the hero of this shit show. His breath was warm against my ear, laced with the faint hop of craft beer, and I stumbled over a crack in the sidewalk, my pulse thundering. Just glad I could help, I murmured, leaning into him just enough to memorize the weight of his body against mine. But heroes don't stay on pedestals forever. By mid-November, the first hints of strain showed. Jake started canceling plans. Family call, he'd text, or audition ran late. I'd nod understandingly when he finally showed, but the distance gnawed at me. Then came the night I needed him. My own world tilted when my editor at the design firm ghosted me on a major project, leaving me staring at a zero-balance checking account and eviction notices looming like storm clouds. Rent was overdue and pride be damned. I swallowed it and called Jake. Hey, could you spot me $800 till Friday? It's just a blip. Silence stretched on the line, then a laugh, sharp, mocking, like glass shattering. Spot you? Alex, come on. After everything. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? He sighed, exasperated. That $5K wasn't a gift, okay? It was a loan. And now you're turning around asking me for cash? Like I can just magic it out of thin air. The words hit like slaps, each one stinging deeper. This was Jake, the guy who'd cried on my shoulder after his first breakup, who'd held my hand through my coming-out panic at 19. I thought we were good, I stammered, voice cracking. Brothers, remember? Another laugh, colder this time. Brothers don't keep score like that. Figure it out, Alex. I've got my own fires to put out. The line went dead, and I sank to the floor, phone slipping from my numb fingers. Outside, the city lights mocked me with their indifferent glow. How had we gotten here? From rooftop promises under starless skies to this, him wielding my generosity like a weapon. That night, as I lay awake listening to the distant wail of sirens, the truth clawed its way up. My love for Jake wasn't just unrequited. It was a debt he was calling in piece by merciless piece. The days that followed were a fog of survival. I pawned my vintage guitar, the one Jake had envied during our dorm days, for half its worth, just enough to cover rent and a week's groceries. Freelance pitches went out into the void, rejected or ignored, while Jake's social media lit up with glimpses of his life. A blurry selfie at a dive bar with new gig alert. A story post of him laughing with strangers at some holiday pop-up. No mentions of family woes. No nods to the bailout that had nearly bankrupted me. I scrolled through them in the dead of night, thumb hovering over the unfollow button, but I couldn't press it. Not yet. He was woven too deep into my story, the thread I couldn't pull without unraveling everything. Thanksgiving crept up, a hollow reminder of abundances I didn't feel. My family back in Seattle had invited me home, but flights were a luxury I couldn't afford, so I opted for a solo shift at the temp agency, stuffing flyers into envelopes for minimum wage. Jake texted that morning, "Turkey at my sister's? Bring your sketchpad. We need your magic." My thumb trembled over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand the money back and an apology wrapped in explanations. But the other part, the one that remembered his vulnerability in that diner, the way his hand had lingered on mine, whispered to fix this face-to-face. I showed up at his sister's brownstone in Queens with a bottle of off-brand wine and a smile plastered on like war paint. The place was alive with chaos. Kids shrieking through the halls, ants clucking over recipes, the air thick with sage and cinnamon. Jake enveloped me in a bear hug at the door, his cologne, that same woodsy scent from our college hikes, flooding my senses. "You made it," he said, pulling back with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thought you'd bail after, you know." We danced around it through dinner, plates piled high with turkey and fixings, laughter bubbling up in fits and starts. Under the table, his knee brushed mine, and I froze, that old spark igniting despite the hurt. Later, as the family dispersed to football on TV, he pulled me onto the fire escape for a smoke, his habit I'd nagged him to quit 100 times. The city sprawled below us, a glittering beast indifferent to our small dramas. "Alex," he started, exhaling a plume into the night. About the money, I didn't mean to snap. It's just, things are still tight. Dad's lead fell through, and now Mom's talking divorce. I feel like I'm drowning. His voice broke, and something in me softened, even as resentment simmered. I wanted to believe him, to bridge the gap with forgiveness. I get it, I said quietly, staring at the skyline. But it hurt, man. Like, really hurt. He nodded, flicking ash over the railing. I know. Let me make it right. Installments, starting next month. Pinky swear. He held out his little finger, that childish gesture from our playground days, and I hooked mine through it, sealing the pact. In that moment, with the wind whispering through the metal grates, I let myself hope again, that this was just a storm and we'd emerge stronger, closer. But hope is a fragile thing in the city that never sleeps. December brought snow flurries and holiday lights that twinkled like false promises. Jake's installments started. A Venmo here, a Cash App there. But they were drops in the bucket, barely covering my overdraft fees. I threw myself into work, landing a contract for a Queer Lit Mag's rebrand, pouring my confusion into bold colors and taglines about resilience. Nights, though, were for what-ifs. What if I'd never sent that money? What if he'd seen me, really seen me the way I saw him? The breaking point came on a frigid night 2 weeks before Christmas. I'd been up till dawn finalizing proofs when my phone buzzed. Not Jake, but a mutual friend, Sarah, with a link to an Insta story. I clicked, heart sinking as the video loaded. Jake, center stage at a packed loft party in Soho, microphone in hand, belting out a karaoke rendition of Friends in Low Places. The crowd hooped, but it was the caption that gutted me. Raising a glass to fake crises and real escapes. Who's buying next? Living my best lie. Below it, a poll. Family drama. Real or just good for a loan? Faced with tears of joy, my vision tunneled. The mockery wasn't subtle. It was a spotlight on my pain, broadcast to hundreds. Fingers flying, I dialed him, voicemail after voicemail piling up like accusations. By morning, rage had curdled into resolve. I packed a bag not to run, but to confront. Our friendship, my love. It all deserved better than this. As the subway rattled toward his place, the city blurring past in a whiteout of snow, I whispered a mantra to the empty car. This ends today, or it begins. The door to Jake's walk-up in Bushwick swung open before I could knock, like he'd been waiting for the axe to fall. He stood there in sweatpants and a faded Mets tee, hair a mess from sleep or stress. I couldn't tell anymore, and his eyes widened at the sight of me, duffel slung over my shoulder like a refugee from our shared history. Alex? Shit, it's early. What's with the bag? His voice was rough, edged with that post-party gravel, but I pushed past him into the living room, the space a chaotic shrine to his dreams. Scripts scattered on the coffee table, takeout containers fossilizing on the windowsill, posters of Brando and Bowie peeling from the walls. I dropped the bag with a thud that echoed my heartbeat. We need to talk. Now. He closed the door slowly, rubbing his face as if that could erase the night. About the story? Come on, it was just dumb drunk posting. Sarah dared me. Don't. I snapped, whirling to face him. The words I'd rehearsed on the train evaporated, replaced by raw hurt spilling out. You took my money, my everything, and spun it into a punchline. For likes, for laughs. Do you even get what that did to me? He flinched, sinking onto the sagging couch, elbows on knees like a kid caught stealing. I was pissed, okay? At Dad, at the whole mess. That money bought us time, but it didn't fix shit. Mom left him last week, packed up and drove to her sister's in Cleveland. And I lashed out. His gaze lifted, pleading. Those blue eyes that had hooked me years ago now rimmed red. Part of me wanted to cross the room, pull him into a hug that said we'd weather this too. But the betrayal burned too hot, a fire I'd stoked in silence for too long. Lashed out at me? The one person who dropped everything for you. My voice rose, cracking on the edges. I paced the threadbare rug, gestures wild, channeling the energy I'd bottled up. I've been there, Jake. Every breakup, every rejection letter from auditions, every time you ghosted after a hookup gone wrong. I listened, I advised, I loaned you my damn heart without asking for interest. And this is how you repay it, with mockery. He stood then, closing the distance, hands outstretched like he could bridge the chasm with sheer will. Alex, stop. You're my rock. Always have been. That post was stupid, yeah. I'll delete it, apologize to everyone. Just don't walk away. The air between us thickened, charged with the unsaid. His proximity, the faint stubble shadowing his jaw, the way his chest rose and fell in sync with mine, stirred that forbidden pull. I'd buried it deep, under layers of bro code and denial. But here, in the harsh morning light slanting through grimy blinds, it surfaced like a tide I couldn't hold back. Walk away, I echoed, voice dropping to a whisper. I've been halfway out the door for years, Jake. Every time you bring home some girl and I play wingman. Every time you crash on my couch and I pretend your arm around me is just friendly. I'm tired of pretending. The confession hung there, a grenade with the pin pulled. His face shifted, shock, then something softer, searching. What are you saying? But he knew. God, he had to know. The late nights dissecting crushes that were never about the girls he described. The way I'd linger in doorways watching him sleep. Time stretched, elastic and taut, until he stepped closer, his hand cupping my elbow. Alex, I. The word died on his lips, but his touch lingered, electric. We stood like that for what felt like eternity, the city waking outside with horns and chatter, oblivious. Then he pulled me into a hug. Not the back-slapping bro kind, but real, vulnerable. His chin resting on my shoulder as if anchoring himself. I'm sorry, he murmured into my neck, breath warm. For all of it. The money, the post, for not seeing. You. Tears pricked my eyes, relief and fear warring inside. Was this forgiveness, or just another delay on the inevitable? We spent the day untangling the mess. He transferred what he could, $1, $200, scraped from a side hustle bartending, and promised the rest by New Year's. The post vanished, replaced by a vague, regrets from last night. Hugs to those I hurt, that felt too little, too late. But as we ordered pizza and binge-watched old episodes of Queer as Folk, his pick, a first for us, something shifted. Laughter came easier, touches lingered longer. When his head dropped to my shoulder during a tense scene, I didn't pull away. Instead, I traced idle patterns on his arm, testing the waters of this new, terrifying normal. By evening, snow had blanketed the streets in hush, and we bundled up for a walk to the corner bodega for beer. The world felt muffled, magical, like the city had conspired to give us this bubble. Under a street lamp's glow, flakes catching in his hair like stars, he stopped me. Alex, about what you said. I don't know what it means for us, but I don't want to lose you. Not as a friend. Not as whatever this is. His hand found mine, gloved fingers intertwining, and my breath caught. It wasn't a declaration, but it was a door cracking open. Hope flickered back to life, fragile but fierce. We returned to his place, the pizza cold and forgotten, and talked. Not about money or betrayal, but dreams. His landing that breakout role, proving to his dad he wasn't a failure. Mine. Launching a design studio focused on queer stories, voices like ours finally amplified. As midnight tolled, we clinked bottles on the fire escape, the skyline a canvas of lights. To second chances, he toasted, eyes locking on mine with an intensity that made my pulse stutter. But second chances come with shadows. The next week, as I hustled through holiday deadlines, Jake's texts grew sporadic again. Rehearsal running late. Family drama update. Call later? Later turned to tomorrow, then silence. Paranoia crept in. Was this the pattern repeating? I threw myself into work, sketching mood boards infused with our rooftop talks. Bold lines evoking vulnerability, colors warm as his laugh. Sarah cornered me at a holiday market in Union Square, her stall piled with handmade ornaments. You okay? That story was brutal. Jake's been weird since. Weird how? I pressed, sipping spiked cider that burned going down. She shrugged, earrings jangling. Distant, like he's hiding something. But hey, if it's about you too. I've always thought there was more there. Her words landed like embers, fanning doubts. Was his hand holding a pity move, or genuine? By New Year's Eve, the questions gnawed, but I shoved them down for the party he'd insisted on. A low-key bash at my place, just our core crew. The clock struck 12 amid cheers and confetti, and in the chaos, Jake found me in the kitchen, popping champagne. Happy New Year, partner in crime. He leaned in, lips brushing my cheek in what could pass for a friendly peck, but his hand at my waist said otherwise. Fireworks boomed outside, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to us. His smile tentative, my heart laid bare. Happy New Year, I whispered back, turning just enough that our lips ghosted. A question, not quite a kiss. He pulled back, eyes wide, but not in retreat. Alex. The party noise swelled, pulling us apart, but the seed was planted. January dawned with tentative steps. Coffee dates that stretched into dinners, walks where hands brushed and stayed linked. He paid another installment. $800 this time, and with it, a handwritten note. For the hero who saved more than my family. I framed it, hidden in my desk drawer, a talisman against the fears. Yet beneath the budding romance, tremors built. Late one night, scrolling mindlessly, I stumbled on an old email chain from college. Jake confessing a crush on a guy from theater club, dismissed as phase stuff. My mind raced. Had he always known this part of himself? And if so, why hide it from me? The question festered, unspoken, as Valentine's approached. He planned a surprise. Tickets to a queer cabaret in the East Village, dim lights and velvet curtains promising intimacy. The show was magic, songs of longing and liberation that mirrored our own dance. Afterward, over wine at a speakeasy tucked in an alley, he took my hand across the scarred oak table. I've been scared, he admitted, voice low, of this, of us, because what if I screw it up, like everything else? Vulnerability poured from him, and I saw the boy from Ohio, chasing acceptance in a city that chewed up dreams. Then we fix it, I said simply, squeezing his fingers. Together. That night, he kissed me. Properly, under the awning as rain slicked the streets. Soft at first, then deepening with years of pent-up what-ifs. The world tilted, alive with possibility. But as we tumbled into my apartment, laughing and shedding coats, a text buzzed on his phone, ignored on the counter. In the morning, it would reveal the fault line. His ex, the one from last summer, back in town with demands and secrets that would test everything we'd just begun to build. Waking up to Jake's arm draped across my waist felt like stealing a page from someone else's life. One where love wasn't a secret carved in shadows. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in lazy stripes, painting his sleeping face in gold. Lashes fanned dark against freckled cheeks. Lips parted in a soft snore that made me smile despite the knot of anxiety low in my gut. His phone had buzzed thrice during the night, each vibration a tiny earthquake I dismissed as telemarketers or spam. Now, as he stirred and murmured my name like a prayer, I let myself believe in this, us, unmarred. Morning, he mumbled, eyes cracking open with that sleepy grin that could disarm a bomb. He pulled me closer, stubble rasping against my neck as he nuzzled in. Last night was real, I finished, heart swelling. We lingered in bed, trading lazy kisses and stories. His first awkward crush in high school PE, my fumbling attempts at dating apps that ended in ghosting marathons. For the first time, the air between us hummed with honesty, no pretenses. But reality intrudes like an uninvited guest. As I brewed coffee in the tiny kitchen, his phone lit up again on the counter. A name flashing, Tyler. My stomach dropped. Tyler, the ex from last summer. The brooding musician who'd swept Jake off to Fire Island weekends and left him shattered when he bailed for a tour in Europe. I'd picked up the pieces then. Nights of ice cream and bad movies. Swearing off love as Jake vowed the same. Why now? Jake emerged, scratching his chest, and snatched the phone with a casualness that rang false. Work stuff, he lied, thumbing it silent. But I'd seen the preview. We need to talk about the money I fronted you. And us. Money? The word twisted like a knife. I set down the mugs harder than intended, ceramic clinking like warning bells. Tyler? What's he want after all this time? He froze, then sighed, leaning against the fridge. It's nothing. Old debt from the trip. I'll handle it. But his eyes skated away, and doubt bloomed cold. Handle it like the $5,000 you handled from me? The barb slipped out, sharper than intended, and he winced. That's not fair, Alex. This is different. Different how? I wanted to shout. Different because it's him, the one who got to touch you first, who left scars I can't see. We salvaged the morning with forced normalcy. Brunch at a Greasy Spoon, where he sketched hearts on the napkin and promised a weekend getaway upstate. But Tyler's shadow lingered, texts pinging intermittently, each one pulling Jake a fraction further. By mid-February, the installments dried up again, excuses piling like snowdrifts, rehearsal costs, car repair for mom. I nodded along, but resentment simmered. A pot left too long on the flame. Work became my refuge. The queer-lit mag project exploded. My designs gracing covers with poetry of fractured hearts and mended souls. Late nights at the studio, surrounded by screens and sticky notes, I poured our story into visuals. Two figures entwined against a stormy skyline, one reaching while the other hesitated. Colleagues noticed the shift, teasing about my muse, but I brushed it off. Muse or mistake? The line blurred. Then came the call from Ohio. Jake's voice on the line was frantic, an echo of that diner night. Alex, it's bad. Grandma's back in the hospital, stroke. They need surgery funds like yesterday. I hate asking, but the plea hung, and despite everything, my resolve cracked. How much? $3,000. I can pay back double, swear. Lies or not, the pull was magnetic. I wired it that afternoon, my bank app a traitor once more. Thank you, he breathed. I love you for this. Love. The word landed like sunlight after eclipse, warming the chill. That evening, he showed up at my door with roses. Cliché, but his sheepish grin made it perfect. Not just for the money, he said, pulling me into a kiss that erased doubts. We cooked pasta in my kitchen, wine flowing, bodies rediscovering each other in the soft glow of string lights. For a night, betrayal felt like a distant memory, replaced by whispers of forever. Spring teased with cherry blossoms along the promenade, and we fell into a rhythm. Farmers markets on weekends, his head in my lap during movie marathons, my fingers in his hair. He landed a callback for a web series, a queer rom-com pilot, and celebrated by dragging me to karaoke, duetting Lucky by Jason Mraz with off-key passion that had the bar cheering. To us, he toasted afterward, clinking glasses, eyes shining with a future I could almost touch. But Tyler wouldn't fade. A chance encounter at an industry mixer in Chelsea. Jake forgot to mention he'd RSVP'd. Turned ugly fast. I spotted them in a corner, heads bent close, Tyler's hand on Jake's arm, that possessive grip from old photos. My beer soured in my mouth. Excusing myself from a conversation with the producer, I wove through the crowd, heart pounding a war drum. Alex! Jake startled, pulling away, but Tyler smirked, all sharp angles and designer stubble. The roommate. Heard you play sugar daddy these days. The room spun. What the hell does that mean? I demanded, voice steady through sheer will. Tyler laughed, low and cruel. Ask your boy. That family emergency last summer? Funded by me. And now he's got you on the hook. Jake's face drained of color. Tyler. Shut up. But the damage was done. Whispers rippled, eyes on us like spotlights. Outside, in the alley's damp chill, Jake rounded on me. He's lying, twisting shit to get back at me. Tears streaked his cheeks, but fury boiled in me now. Then why the texts? Why the secrets? He deflated, sliding down the brick wall. I didn't want to drag you into it. He loaned me for the trip, then ghosted. When he came back, he wanted more. I said no. That's it. More. The implication hung, ugly and intimate. Had they rekindled? Or worse, used me as collateral? We fought in whispers, accusations flying like shrapnel. You're just like him, Taking and taking. I hurled, the truth of it breaking me. He grabbed my shirt, desperate. No, Alex. I love you. This us is real. But love, I was learning, doesn't erase ledgers. I stormed home alone, the subway a blur of fluorescent hate, barricading myself with sketchpads and silence. Days stretched into a cold war. He blew up my phone with apologies. Flowers at work. A playlist of our songs titled, Don't Let Go. I listened to it on loop, each track a knife twist. Longing in the lyrics mirroring my ache. Sarah mediated over coffee. Her artists I seeing what I couldn't. He's scared, Alex, of losing you, of owning this. But Tyler? That's poison. Cut it out. The climax hit on a stormy April evening. I'd buried myself in a new commission. A mural for a pride center in Harlem, vibrant strokes of resilience. When pounding rattled my door. Jake, soaked to the bone, eyes wild. He's coming for me. Tyler. Says he'll expose everything. The loans, the family lies. Unless I go back to him. The words tumbled out, laced with panic. Expose? My mind reeled. What lies? He collapsed onto the floor, confession spilling like rain. The family trouble, that started it all? Half true. Dad's business was failing, but the real hook was Jake's gambling app addiction. Bets on shows and games that spiraled after Tyler left. The $5,000 hadn't just saved his folks. It bailed him out of debt collectors. I lied to you because I was ashamed. You're the good one, Alex. I didn't want to taint that. Betrayal layered on betrayal. But beneath it, his rawness. Sobbing, clutching my knees. Cracked my armor. Why mock me then? The post. Deflection, he choked. To push you away before you saw the mess I am. Thunder rolled, mirroring the storm inside. I knelt, cupping his face, thumbs brushing tears. You're not a mess. You're human. But no more secrets. We clung through the night, bodies entwined against the tempest, promises forged in lightning flashes. Morning brought fragile peace. He blocked Tyler, joined a support group for the gambling, vowed transparency. The mural took shape under my hands, infused now with his story. Fractures mended in bold color. But as May bloomed, a letter arrived, certified, from Tyler's lawyer. Demands for repayment, threats of public shaming. The noose tightened, and I wondered if love could outrun the debts we'd both accrued. Summer heat baked the city into a pressure cooker, tempers flaring as freely as hydrants spraying kids on stoops. Jake and I navigated the scorch with tentative grace. Picnics in Central Park where he'd read lines from his script. Me sketching his profile against the reservoir's shimmer, capturing the vulnerability in his jaw's set line. The lawyer's letter sat unanswered on my desk, a paper dragon we ignored, pretending words on bond could be willed away. Focus on us, he'd say, lacing fingers during sunset jogs along the West Side Highway, wind whipping sweat from our brows. And for stolen hours, it worked. But dragons don't vanish. They hoard. Tyler escalated, voicemails laced with venom, tagged posts on industry forums hinting at shady backers in Jake's circle. Whispers reached my freelance network. Heard your boyfriend's in deep with some bad loans. Boyfriend. The label thrilled and terrified. A public stake in a game turning vicious. Jake doubled down on recovery. Weekly meetings in a church basement. Sharing war stories with strangers who nodded like kin. One day at a time, he'd quote, kissing my temple before heading out. I threw myself into the Pride mural, scaffolding creaking under Brooklyn's sun as I layered acrylics. Intertwined hands breaking chains, rainbows arching over skyline scars. Locals gathered, offering water and cheers, their stories echoing ours. Rejections, redemptions. One elder, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, clasped my arm. Art heals what words can't, son. Keep painting truth. His words anchored me, a reminder that our mess was part of a larger tapestry. Yet cracks spiderwebbed. Jake's callback led to a table read, then filming delays that stretched weeks into a ghosting limbo. Texts dwindled. On set. Miss you. Followed by radio silence. Paranoia whispered. Tyler's influence? Or the old pull of escape? One humid night, I cracked, showing up unannounced at the studio lot in Long Island City. He emerged from a trailer, script in hand, surprise melting into guilt. "Alex? What's wrong?" "Everything," I blurted, voice raw in the parking lot's hum. "You're pulling away again. And Tyler, his posts are everywhere. People are talking." He raked hands through his hair, defeated. "The director's straight edge. One whiff of scandal and I'm out." I blocked him, but he made outs. "It's killing me." We drove back in silence, fairy lights strobing over the East River like accusations. "At my place," he broke. "I can't lose this shot. Not after everything. But I can't lose you either." The dilemma hung, a sword of Damocles. We compromised. I drafted a cease and desist with a pro bono lawyer from the Pride Center citing harassment. Tyler fired back with proof. Screenshots of Jake's old Venmo pleas, laced with flirty emojis that twisted my gut. "See? He used me. Now he's using you." Jake swore it was exaggeration, a toxic dynamic he'd fled. But doubt seeded, watered by sleepless nights. July 4th brought fireworks, literal and figurative. We escaped to a rooftop barbecue with Sarah and crew, skyline exploding in red, white, blue fury. Jake pulled me aside amid the booms, a sparkler clutched like a talisman. "Marry me?" he joked or half-joked. Ring pop from a corner store glinting on my finger. Laughter bubbled, but his eyes held a plea, "Stay." I slid it on, sealing the moment, even as Tyler's latest missive burned in my pocket. "Meet me, or it all goes public." The explosion came at dawn the next day. Jake's phone, left charging while he showered, lit with notifications. A thread on a theater Reddit, anonymous but unmistakable. Rising star Jake Harlan. Gambler, liar, mooch. Ask his bestie Alex about the $8,000 loans for fake family BS. Receipts attached. Screenshots flooded. Our Venmo history, twisted into narrative of exploitation. My name dragged through digital mud, clients emailing hesitations, the mag pulling my contract pending clarification. Rage propelled me to Tyler's door in the meatpacking district, a sleek loft reeking of entitlement. He answered smirking, glass of mimosa in hand. "The night arrives. Come to beg. To end this," I snarled, shoving printed demands inside. "Harassment stops or cops." He laughed, scrolling his phone. "Too late. It's viral. Your boy's career? Toast. Unless." The unless dangled predatory. "He comes back. We were good, you know. Real." Disgust roiled. "You're poison. And Jake's done drinking." I left with his laughter chasing, but victory felt hollow. Back home, Jake waited, face ashen from the thread's fallout. Casting called revoked. Friends distanced, pity in their texts. He crumpled into me, sobs racking. "I ruined us. Everything I touch." I held him, whispering mantras of worth, but inside, fractures deepened. Love, I realized, demands sacrifice, but at what cost? August simmered with fallout. I clawed back work, pitching to underground zines hungry for raw queer tales. My portfolio now battle-scarred authentic. Jake spiraled. Auditions dodged. Nights pacing with a beer he nursed but didn't drink. Therapy unearthed roots. Dad's abandonments. The pressure to be the success story. "I'm scared I'm like him," he confessed one twilight. Skyline bleeding orange from my window. "Taking without giving." "You're not," I insisted, tracing his palm's lines. "But we need boundaries. Pay what you can when you can. And fight. For you, for us." He nodded, resolve flickering. We volunteered at the Pride Center, painting over my mural's finishing touches, hands smeared in color. Laughter returned in fits, shared glances pregnant with forgiveness. Tyler's final gambit landed mid-month. A public apology post, laced with barbs. Lessons learned in love and loans. No hard feelings at Jake Harlan NYC. Pay up and we're square. The internet erupted. Supporters decrying toxicity. Skeptics piling on. Jake responded with his own, raw, unfiltered. "Yeah, I messed up. Addiction, lies hurt people I love. But I'm owning it. Grateful for second chances." Recovery road. It went semi-viral, drawing messages of solidarity, even a podcast invite. Emboldened, he pitched a one-man show, Deaths of the Heart, weaving gambling's grip with queer awakening. I designed the poster, him silhouetted against a ledger of stars, title in fractured font. Rehearsals filled our evenings, his monologues gutting me anew. The diner plea, the mocking post, our first kiss as redemption arc. This is for you. He'd say post-run, sweat slick and alive. Pride swelled, mingled with fear. What if it flopped, exposing more? September's equinox brought harvest of sorts. The show's debut at a black box theater in the village sold out, friends packing seats, Sarah whooping from row 1. Jake on stage was revelation. Voice cracking on confessions, body taut with earned grace. The final line, love isn't alone. It's a leap, landed like thunder, applause crashing. Backstage, he crashed into my arms, tears mixing with mine. We did it. After-party buzzed, but we slipped away to the high line, rails warm under twilight. Thank you, he whispered, forehead to mine, for seeing me through the ugly. Our kiss was slow, seasoned with growth. But as leaves turned, a doctor's call shattered the idyll. Grandma's condition worsened, real this time. No lies, just end-of-life care costs looming. $10,000. The cycle taunted, but Jake met my eyes. Not alone. We'll fundraise, shows proceeds, GoFundMe. Together. Unity felt possible. But October winds whispered warnings. Tyler lurked in DMs, offers of settlement that screamed trap. And in quiet moments, I caught Jake staring at his phone, old habits ghosting his gaze. Love's ledger balanced precariously, high wire over abyss. Autumn's chill seeped into bones, turning the city into a mosaic of crunching leaves and steaming vents. Jake's show extended runs, drawing reviewers who praised its visceral humanity. But the real win was internal. Nights he came home lighter, script traded for journal entries charting sober days. We co-host the GoFundMe live stream from my living room, awkward charm winning donations. Sarah's art auction, theater buddies raffles. By Halloween, we'd hit $7,000, enough for initial care with more trickling in. Teamwork, Jake grinned, carving pumpkins into queer icons. Me a fierce rainbow warrior, him a lantern-jawed hero. Yet humanity's not linear. It's a spiral, dipping into dark before ascent. Tyler's settlement arrived formalized. $15,000 or a lawsuit alleging fraud, citing our wires as evidence. Jake's hand shook signing the countersuit, but resolve hardened his jaw. No more running. Court dates loomed, a gauntlet testing our weave. I prepped visuals for his defense, timelines of repayments, addiction resources, turning pain into proof. November elections buzzed, but our vote was personal. For trust. Jake's group shared a breakthrough, confronting Dad. A terse call from Ohio forgiving old wounds. He said he's proud. Jake relayed, voice thick, collapsing into me on the couch. First time. We marked it with cider and It's a Wonderful Life. His head on my lap, fingers tracing tattoos I'd inked during lean times. A compass rose for direction lost and found. The climax crested mid-month. Rain lashing like Judgment Day. Tyler's deposition devolved into ambush. His lawyer dredging Jake's past flings. Painting him predator, me enabler. In the sterile conference room, fluorescent buzz mocking us, Jake testified unflinching. I was addicted, broken. Alex didn't enable, he saved. Love isn't transaction. It's grace. Tyler sneered from across the table, but cracks showed. His own history of manipulations unearthed by our sleuthing. Outside, as verdict loomed, Jake pulled me under an awning. City blurred in downpour. Whatever happens, you're my win. His kiss was fierce, claiming, rain mingling on our lips. Days later, settlement. Tyler dropped claims for $5,000. His bluff called, reputation singed by public backlash. Jake paid from show royalties. Ledger closing with a final Venmo. Full circle. Love you. Winter solstice approached. Shortest day birthing longest night of reflection. Grandma passed peacefully, funds ensuring dignity. Jake flew home for the funeral, returning with her locket. Inside, a photo of young love, his grandparents gazing eternal. She said to choose joy, he shared, fastening it around my neck. Christmas Eve, we strung lights on a scavenged tree, ornaments from markets. A tiny stonewall brick, a guitar pick etched leap. But humanism whispers no tidy bows. Scars linger, growth iterative. Jake relapsed once, a sneaky bet on a Knicks game during a low, confessing before I noticed group meeting that night. I choose us, he vowed, and I believed, holding space for imperfection. My studio launched modest, a co-op space in Bed-Stuy, walls alive with queer narratives. Jake's show poster inaugural exhibit. New Year's dawned crisp, rooftop party our own. Just us, champagne flutes clinking under stars peeking through cloud wisps. To debts paid, he toasted, and futures owed only to joy. Fireworks bloomed distant, but ours was quieter. Vows exchanged in whispers. Rings simple silver bands engraved, leap. No grandeur, just us, flawed and fierce. As spring hinted green, we walked the promenade, hands linked against wind. Betrayal's echo faded, replaced by harmony's hum. I'd loved him through storm. He'd learned to love back, unborrowed. In America's vast, beating heart, we'd carved a story not of perfection, but persistence. Human, heartfelt, ours. The rain that started it all returned one April dawn. Soft patter on windows as we stirred tangled in sheets. Jake's eyes met mine, lazy smile blooming. Morning, partner. No debts unspoken, just life unfolding. And in that quiet, I knew. We'd borrowed from pain, repaid in grace. The end? Not tragedy nor flawless fairy tale, but a beginning earned in full.